Hello and welcome to my dental hygiene school experience. My name is Dax Ska, and each episode I'm going to share my own experience of dental hygiene school. The highs, the lows, the funny, and the real. Thank you for joining me on my journey, and here's another episode right now. What's up, dental nerds? I am Dax Ska, and this is a packed full episode. The podcast is actually doing quite well, and much better than I expected. I'm guessing that most of my listeners are people that I know. Thank you all for listening. But if we've never met and I'm just some random person on your podcasting app, thank you for stopping by. I hope you continue joining me on my journey. All right, let's dive in. So I told you that I was going to be real in this podcast, and so far I've kept things pretty light. But I did want to talk about my struggles so far. Now, keeping in mind that the program is only just starting, it's only week 3 at this point, but as quizzes come up and I'm starting to realize how much work the program actually is, it's just starting to hit me, Honestly, I don't think I'm even feeling the full weight of the homework yet. And with every quiz and homework assignment, I've experienced a lot of doubt. I feel like failing one quiz will get me kicked out of the program. Not that it would, but, that's how I feel. With the amount of homework, it feels like I'm spending all my time doing homework and I don't have time to learn the material. When my classmate and I were between classes, I shared with them how I was feeling and they told me, guess what? They feel the exact same way. We're all experiencing doubt and I feel like we're one step away from failure. But that's not really the case. One of my program classmates shared in our group chat that they won't let anyone fail the program. And someone else said that they also won't let anyone fail the program. Another person has offered their phone number if anyone needs anyone to talk to. And even beyond that, the instructors in the program have said that they won't let anyone fail. I feel very supported from many places, and it makes me have fewer doubts. Now, something exciting that I did want to share, something good news. We finally got our scrubs. We've been wearing business casual for the past 3 weeks, I guess. And we finally got our scrubs in. They are navy blue and they're actually quite nice. It's not top of the line scrubs, but I've worn worse scrubs, so this is pretty good. And now that I have my scrubs, I feel legit, and I feel less like I'm taking a program in business or something like that. I don't know. And for one of my classes, we've been starting to draw teeth. It's the dental anatomy class. So we had to draw tooth number 26, I think it was. And we have to draw them from each side. And honestly, I'm not an artist at all. I cannot draw stick figures. I don't know why we're doing this part, but I guess it's to get familiar with how each tooth is. And honestly, I'm kind of proud of my work. I think that given the fact that I'm not an artist, they turned out pretty good. The first weekend of week 3, I I was at a family gathering and I talked to someone who's a hygienist in Canada. Now, one thing that we heard about was Canada uses a different numbering system than the United States. And so, of course, me being the curious person that I am, I had to ask her, I'm like, so how do you number the teeth then? And we talked through it, and sure enough, it's true. They have a completely different numbering system. I have to learn 3 different numbering systems for being in school. I don't know why, because I'm not going to be learning the Canadian numbering system so I can work in Canada. I'm going to be working in the States. Either way, it's cool that I was able to talk to someone about that. Now, I wanted to get into my commute a little bit because I noticed something. People are bad. And I'm not talking about crazy drivers, but you know how a lot of places there's an HOV lane? Well, okay, so people use it and whatever. Well, there was one morning I was actually in rush hour traffic, to be expected. And I was in the far left lane before the HOV lane. And I like to give a little bit of space. I don't want to be right on the person's bumper in front of me. And I just noticed a lot of cars were suddenly changing out of the HOV lane and going into the lane that I was in, behind me, in front of me. And the further along I got, the more I realized, oh, State Patrol's hanging out right over there. And then it occurred to me, oh, those people are changing lanes because there's only one person in the car. And okay, so whatever, people are changing in the lanes, but I'm getting closer and closer, and I noticed one car, they were in clear view of the State Patrol, and they got in the line anyway, and I was watching to see if they were going to do anything, and they didn't. So I guess the rule is that as long as you don't pass them while still in the HOV lane, they're not going to pull you over. I don't know. And it wasn't just one or two of them, but there was a lot of them. And yeah, I don't know. These rule breakers were flying down the lane and they just know State Patrol and they changed lanes. I guess this is a common occurrence. I'm not used to driving in such a big city like this, but I guess that's how it is. Why don't we take a little break and then we'll get back to it. All right, welcome back. So, we're on to week 4 now, and I had a midterm on one of the days, and the night before my midterm, I had to make a drawing of another tooth. Okay, we're moving on to tooth number 6. That's your upper right canine. We are required to draw from 4 different views of that tooth, and there are subtle details that we need to include for each view. It can take probably about 3 hours to make these drawings. I had some black tea because it was getting late in the evening and I needed help concentrating. I stayed up late to do these drawings. I finally got the pictures done and I went to bed. But I couldn't sleep because I had caffeine late in the day. It's kind of a catch-22 situation. And then on top of that, I had to get up extra early so I could do an observation in the school's clinic. So at 5 a.m. I had to wake up, and I managed to get out the door at the reasonable time. I had to get gas for my car, and then I made it to school 15 minutes before the observation started. Probably don't want to be any later than that. Anyway, so being in the clinic, it was an awkward experience. Our instructor had given us a code to get into the door, the employee entrance, or the student entrance, and it turns out the code was wrong. But someone let me in anyway. I haven't met any students of the class that I was observing yet. But obviously they knew I wasn't some rando off the street because of my scrubs. Thank goodness for my scrubs, right? I asked one of the students if an instructor was around because I wasn't completely clear on how things worked around here. They told me just to kind of wait where I was and eventually an instructor would show up. Okay, so I just continued my awkward hanging around. But then another student kind of said hi to me and then we got to talking and then she asked me how school was doing for me so far. I mentioned that the workload was a lot and my toughest class was microbiology. Another student nearby said that the class is really hard and she thought she was going to fail it. But she did pass. She told me I'll be fine. I found that to be inspiring. Another student who thought they were going to fail microbiology, but then they passed. And now she's in her second year and thriving. I didn't know who she was, but I appreciate what she had to say. All right, so the observation in total was about 20 minutes. And really it wasn't too involved. Basically, I joined the huddle where all the students were telling about their patients for that day, and then I followed Cassandra, and I watched her check in a patient. I won't give any details about it, just for HIPAA violation. Don't want to have that happen. But I can say that she went over the health history with the patient and clarified any necessary details. Then the instructor signs off on it, and then the dentist signs off on it. Then the appointment can start. Because all of us are students, they need to take extra precautions so after each step in the appointment, you have to get approval before you can move on. The check-in process for the patient was uneventful, which is an ideal scenario for the dental office. So my observation was over at that point, and I had an hour and a half to kill before my first class, so I asked someone where the nearest Starbucks was because I was running on 3 hours sleep. So I ran and got a matcha green tea latte, and then I came back to school. I had my first midterm exam in dental anatomy. In this class, I always seemed to feel under pressure, underprepared for any quizzes or tests or anything like that, but it turns out that it's never as bad as I'm expecting. And this was the case for today. Thank goodness. There were a few questions where I flat out didn't know the answer and I got wrong, which, you can't always be perfect. Between tricky wording and how I overthink questions, I can see how that happened. Next week, I have my midterm for anatomy and physiology. It's my second hardest class, so I'll be spending my summer weekend studying so I can get a good grade. And in terms of my dental anatomy exam, I did quite well. I'm happy with how I did. I do not let the fact that I'm losing my summer bother me too much. The way I see it, it's an investment for my future. If I invest my time now, in 2 years I can enjoy my summer and feel very accomplished. Anyway, that's all I have for this episode. Before I go, I wanted to tell you about a feature I have with my podcast. Do you have a question for me? You can leave me a short clip asking your question, and then I will feature it on the show. I love questions. I may not have the answers yet, but I will see what I can do to answer them. There is a link in the show notes if you want to do that. I hope you all are doing well, and thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. It truly means a lot. I look forward to sharing more experiences with you on the next episode. Until then, I am Dax Scott, and you dental nerds keep it real.